Welcome to the Minimalist Educator Podcast, a podcast about paring down to refocus on the purpose and priorities in our roles, with co-hosts and co-authors of the Minimalist Teacher Book, Tammy Musiowski-Borneman and Christine Arnold.
On today's episode, Sheila shares with us various insights into how we can spread healthy positivity through our days and with each other in our busy lives as educators. Her Pare Down pointer is about making today count. Sheila Kennedy is the founder of Be Positively Connected, one of the first 1,000 in the world to earn a master's degree in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. She is known for her passion for connecting others to the practical applications of the science of well-being so they can live their best lives. Ranging from first grade teacher to instructional coach, adjunct professor to educational consultant, as well as conference presenter and keynote speaker, Sheila has spent the past 25 years working in education. With a focus on topics rooted in positive emotions, investing in joy, and building resiliency, her mission is to help others reclaim their happiness, ignite their passions, and unleash their potential.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Today, we have with us Sheila Kennedy. We are super excited to have you with us today, Sheila. Welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Like I say, practice what I preach. So I always try to find the goodness. It was a little bit of a crazy morning, but it's all turning out well.
Good. And how are you today, Christine?
I am very good. And what about you, Tammy?
Pretty well. I'm happy to just be talking with lovely people today. So it's a good day.
Absolutely.
Speaking of good days and happy moments so far, we are with Sheila, who is an expert, someone who knows a lot about positive psychology, which is a very interesting field, especially with all of us being educators, where, education is often a rough field to be in, and we really need positivity. So Sheila, can you tell us a bit about how you got into the study of positive psychology?
Absolutely. It's kind of funny because it started, you said, as us all being here as educators, it was through professional development that I was taking. And we had a list of books to choose from. And for some reason, I chose the book Learned Helplessness, which doesn't sound a whole lot like a positive book to read. But it was by Marty Seligman, who is considered one of the forefathers of the positive psychology field. And through reading that book, I really just got on this journey of discovering the field. And through that, and on a teacher's salary, realized at that time I was not able to earn a degree from the University of Pennsylvania, in which Marty Seligman offers a degree in the field. So instead, I went and got a certificate in positive psychology. And I, as many of us as learners do, wanted to take what I was learning and bring it into my classroom with my first graders. And so through the certificate program, I'm learning the science of how to live well. And I'm also one who loves positive messages on my shirts. And I would wear them on dress down Fridays. Not a lot of Fridays for that. So I thought, how could I make it that I can wear these t-shirts a little bit more and still look professional? And you throw a blazer over a t-shirt, it dresses you up. Along with that, I was looking on social media and you would see a lot of the Sunday night scaries, the Monday morning blues, which is all real and okay. And also I thought, well, how could I kind of take these two things I'm saying and bring it into my classroom? And so I got the idea of wearing my positive shirts on Mondays. And I would share the message with my students during Monday morning meetings, as well as have a lot of curious teachers, as I was doing it more and more often, of looking to see what that positive message was on my shirt. Aside from doing it in my classroom, I would post it on social media. And so I would use the hashtag Monday Positivity, but with a TEE. And I would not only share this positive message, but I also would share a little bit of the science behind why that message really could help us with what the science tells us is, how can we live better? How can we flourish both in the classroom and outside of the classroom? And so I started sharing that. And through sharing that, it not only helped myself get excited for a Monday morning, because I got to pick out a new t-shirt with a great message. It also had that ripple effect of what we know about positivity, which is it started affecting others and others started wanting to do it. So other teachers started sharing it on social media, as well as my students. And at the time, my school had a dress code. My principal was really supportive of what I was doing and seeing the effects of having positivity in my classroom, how it was having my students excited to come up to school. And so they even allowed the students to start wearing shirts with positive messages to school. And so it had that ripple effect. So that's kind of the longer version of how I got into the field. But through that, like many of us, that passion grows and gets deeper. And so it was about 3 years later, I went from getting a certificate to saying, you know what, I'm all in. I want more of this. And I applied and was fortunate enough to be accepted into the master's program. And then since have earned a master's in positive psychology, and now not only get to share it with educators and students, but with lots of different organizations in bringing it into how we can have that ripple effect in all of our lives.
Very cool. What a great thing to do a master's in. I love it. Yeah, awesome. I mean, I definitely want to hear more about positive psychology with the students, but just my first initial thought is, thinking about what we can spread, the feelings that we can spread. So when I look at Instagram reels and so on, I'm seeing a lot of these teacher tired, we're so overwhelmed and like the world is burning down around our shoulders sort of things. And we send it to each other as a joke and a laugh. But this is making me think, are we actually spreading rumination? Are we spreading this feeling of negativity rather than actually spreading a more positive message? What are your thoughts on that?
That is such a great question, Christine. And I really think it ties into what, and I know we're probably going to talk a little bit later about like your 3P process, but I think one of my P's, that first part of like the purpose of your why really ties into that awareness. And I think when we're on social media, to have that awareness of what we're consuming, is it bringing us, when we send it as a joke, if it's adding a little laughter to our day, laughter's good. It's good to have that awareness also of like, okay, I'm not in this alone. Other people are experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. And then I think, but then that has to go that next step of, but if I'm consuming it and it's ruminating and it's causing now more of taking me down that downward spiral of not feeling good and spreading more negativity feelings, that's where then we need to take a pause and say, wait a minute. If what I'm consuming is not doing what I really intended it to do, to take a pause and do something about it. And I think that's where then a lot of these other people who share and post about things like, maybe it's Monday positivity, or it's the joy spotting that I do as well as many others do, or it's sharing your passions, your strengths, the things that really light you up to counteract some of those not so good feelings. Because we also, if we didn't have those bad feelings, we wouldn't know how good the good feels. And so we need both, but we also need to have that awareness of when it's too much.
That's such a good point. And as you were just talking, I was thinking about some of those memes, right? Like Christine and I will share them to each other sometimes, and I send things to you too, Sheila. But I also think, like, when I look at some of your posts, Sheila, because I like looking at your joy spotting, because you do these cute things, and you can share about that in a moment. But the joy spotting like has a clear purpose, right? The sharing, the like dumpster burning, this is my teaching job, which again, we know is funny, but it's such a different feeling. And I think about like, how do I, even though I do laugh at it and it's relatable, what feeling do I want to walk away with when I'm done looking at Instagram or whatever? Well, I probably want to look at something that has that better kind of like warming your heart feeling, right? And it's not one of those things like you're not ever saying like everything is, we're not thinking like toxic positivity where there's nothing negative happening. Like you're real about things, right? But maybe this is a good spot for you to talk about the joy spotting that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said there. A couple things that I wanted to pull out was like that intentionality piece. It's great to have that awareness of like, oh, is it filling me up or maybe not so much? That's not how I'm going to walk away with that feeling. But prioritizing and having that intentionality of like, okay, well, when I'm consuming this, now what? And maybe it's,
Mhm.
oh, when I see something like that funny meme, that's that intentional piece of like, now I need to go find something that lifts me up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's my cue to move on. But with the joy spotting and how, yes, it's not all sunshine and roses all the time. Joy spotting really is a key to filling the pieces when things aren't feeling so great. In our lives, we can't control a whole lot of things. And we can have days when things aren't going right. But what I like to say is joy is, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with or if you ever heard of kintsugi, which is this
Oh,
Japanese art form,
Yes,
where
yes,
it's
yes.
pottery that has, yes, that has it has cracks. And usually when you think of something cracked, it's broken, it's no longer good. But in this Japanese art form, they fill these cracks with a liquid gold and turn this
right. Yes.
broken piece of pottery into this beautiful form of art. And I like to think of joy in the same way that joy is that liquid gold into our days of when the things that aren't so good kind of put the cracks in our day. That by
Mhm.
using joy, you can fill in those cracks. You can have that liquid gold. And with joy, especially, I know, Tammy, you're aware of this, but I've recently lost what I always say is my love of my life, my little Oreo, my Chihuahua, who would have been 15 just 2 weeks ago. But it was through joy spotting that really helped me get through the hard stuff. Because as much as there was some pain involved in that, and we all need to have that,
Mhm.
it was those moments of joy that I had collected that really refueled me and allowed me to get through it. And so when I talk about joy spotting, for those that may not be familiar with it, it's really those couple components that we've kind of touched on already, which is having that awareness of, taking that pause for a moment. Your day can be crazy. For example, even just this morning, I said I had a little bit of a crazy morning. I took my mother, she's going through a lot of medical issues right now, but she went for a procedure. We go to sign her in, and they say, "Oh, your insurance is no longer like valid." And she's now panicking. The hands are shaking, like, I need to get this procedure done. And she's stressing out. And I happen to look over, and on a counter, there's this planner with a little succulent in it. And it says, be happy, choose joy. She didn't see this, but I immediately grab my phone. I walk over and I snap a picture. And she says, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Are you joy spotting?" And I said, "Yes." And then I showed her the picture of what it was. And just for that moment, she went from being stressed and the hands shaking and nervous of, am I going to be able to get this procedure that I need to get, to
Mhm.
just for that moment, being able to calm down her internal nervous system and take a pause and catch her breath, put a little smile on, and then go on with dealing with what she was dealing with at hand. And that's what joy spotting allows us to do, to have that awareness for that moment, to take in something around us when we see it and capture it. And it doesn't need to be the big stuff, because
No.
that's easy to spot. The easy stuff is easy to spot. When it's a real big stuff, the big celebrations, the big goal settings that we accomplish, the big get togethers. But in those little moments, they're the things that those little moments add up and really have a profound effect on us. So it's with that awareness that we have, and then the reality of purposely going out and doing more of it. So when I first started doing joy spotting, it wasn't something I automatically went to, but we know with any muscle that whatever we focus on is going to grow stronger. And so if we
Mhm.
look for negative, we're going to find it real easily, because our brain is designed to do that. But when it comes to joy, like a lot of other things, if we really make it a point to be intentional and look for it, the more we do it, the easier it's going to be to find it. And so what started off with, from my positive psychology program, of a gratitude practice in which we were told to write in a journal and practice gratitude, it didn't work for me. I
Oh,
did not
okay.
enjoy I did not enjoy writing in a journal. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in this program and I'm supposed to be grateful, and I am, but writing it down is not making me feel good. And so they said, be creative, find other ways to try it out. And so I thought, well, I always have my cell phone with me. I'm going to snap a picture every day of something that I'm grateful for. And so I had an album in my phone of a daily gratitude picture. And so when I started discovering joy and really doing a lot more research in joy, I thought, well, let me see if I could do this with joy and start finding things that bring me joy. It might be a rainbow. It might be a pretty flower. It might be something funny, using all 5 senses. And what I found was, like, the more I did it, the easier it was to find those moments of joy, even in what you would consider to be maybe not a good day. And what I realized was, how can I take this practice and make it even more meaningful? And that's where on Sundays, as Tammy commented, I do a weekly, most Sundays, not all, not perfect, but most Sundays, I try to share a joy spotting post. And it really started off as a way to kind of hold myself accountable to really get used to this practice and strengthen that muscle. But it was through the reflection of going back and looking at each picture from the past week of that one moment of joy, that through that reflection of really looking at and thinking about why, going back to that purpose and awareness, why did that bring me joy? It really increased and heightened my awareness. And through the reflection process, I realized it really leveled back down to gratitude. I realized, like, I have all these things to be grateful for in my life. And so it has turned into a joy post, but it really underlying is gratitude. And what we know from the science is gratitude and joy are very closely connected to one another.
That's making me think about, the science behind it. Is it more effective if we're noticing it in the moment, or is it as effective if at the end of the day I go back and reflect on my day and think, okay, what were the moments of joy or gratitude? Is there any science behind that, or is, as you say, it's kind of more dependent on the person and what they prefer?
I like to often refer to this, Christine, as the Goldilocks rule. It's kind of my own little saying, probably from my first grade teacher background, that I refer to Goldilocks. But when we think of Goldilocks and having to try out things to find what's just right for Goldilocks, the same holds true for us. And so what the science tells us with positive interventions, which are truly like these intentional actions that we go after to increase our level of positive emotions that we're feeling, you really need to find a just right fit for you. And so, like anything, you need to practice it and try it on and see which one really fits for you. And so for me, initially, I had to be really intentional about looking for and spotting those moments. Other people, it may come very easily too, if it's something you kind of unconsciously do already. Probably if you're more of, that cup half filled kind of a perspective. But it also involves, for a lot of people, it might be if you're someone who thinks about at the end of the day, what was good about my day? That may be the initial step you have to take. And through that heightened awareness, you'll start to realize, I notice a lot of times when I'm out in nature, it seems to be those moments that are really shining for me. I need to get out in the nature more. Or I notice when I get on a Zoom call and see faces of my friends that I haven't seen in a while, that really lights me up. I need to be more intentional about planning out some more Zoom calls with friends that live far away, or as many people know, my favorite color is color pink. I have that awareness, but some people may not be aware of what things in your surroundings really make you light up and feel good. And so maybe it's a certain color or your happy place. For me, it's New York City. So whether I'm physically in New York or I have little reminders around that remind me of New York, I'm going to feel more joy by having those reminders. So I think it really comes down to having that first self-awareness and understanding it. And if you can do it in the moment, that's great. But also that reflection, and we know reflection is so important as educators, to go back and see what's working and what's not working. That's really going to help us to see. And the science tells us the same thing, that awareness is key. First and foremost, because then we know what to either practice more of or in some cases get rid of and eliminate. And I know you ladies are very, very keen on that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, and you've just brought up so many good points about the intentionality of what we do, right? So how many times do we go somewhere and we're taking pictures of things, and then do we actually look back at them And yes, lots of people do, but I really like that focus on using your photos as a reflection point to find joy or goodness or happiness. And I know you and I have both done this in professional learning sessions where it's like, get out your phone and find a picture that makes you happy or makes you smile as a way to kick off a session, because then people start with a smile on their face instead of coming in kind of feeling down like they have to be in another meeting, right? So it's nice to use that as a tool to spark a little joy before you're going to continue some learning, but it's so intentional. And like, think about like everybody's probably got 10, 20,000 pictures on their phones. Might as like start scrolling back and looking at them and see why you even took the pictures in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And you just reminded me of something that I have right here. Actually, my daughter will probably kill me. I know your listeners can't see this, but I have this daily calendar that my children have got me as a Christmas gift each for the last 2 years now. But they go through and find pictures either from my social media or pictures as a family that we send back and forth. And every day talking about like setting yourself up for joy. Every morning when I wake up, my surroundings, I have colors that bring me joy, pictures that bring me joy. This is a daily piece of going back into those billions of pictures that we have on our phones. And they have turned it into a daily like reminder of something from the past. And savoring is such a powerful tool to elicit those positive emotions, whether it's savoring in the present moment, like I do with my phone when I do joy spotting, or when we go back and look at all the pictures on our phone or an old yearbook or a photo album back when printing pictures was a thing. That has just as much of a benefit. It gets us to take us like time travel back into the past and experience that positive emotion again in the present moment. And so even having just something that is a reminder of that to go back onto our phone. And as you mentioned, Tammy, about sharing it in professional development, of having that like starting off with a smile. I have even forced myself to really be intentional about, instead of asking, how are you doing? Because again, you're opening up, it can go one of two ways. It's either going great or it's not going so great. And that's okay too. But if we want to start with an intentionality of raising the positive emotions and putting a smile, is to change that and shift to, tell me something that's going good today. And right away, it forces us to shift from maybe not all the stuff that's going on that didn't go well, but really to be intentional and focus on what is something that's going good for me. Finding the good.
And what a great way to start a day with students too, right?
Yeah.
Because I do that too. Like I'll see the kids in the morning and I'm like, how are you this morning? So-and-so. And they're like, good. Okay, well, that's kind of the response that I was expecting, but just changing that language a little bit can really change someone's day too. So I really appreciate just thinking about those little tweaks in language that we can make, that little change in a question can change
like
someone's
you said,
day.
What the good part is, like, oh, it's good. I mean, that's our general good. That's good. Everything's good. Tell me, like, what's going good? What's going well? Or what are you looking forward to? Because that's the other piece of savoring, not just in the present or reminiscing in the past, but anticipation is also a powerful tool in regards to like something to look forward to. So even if you're coming in and you're tired on a Monday morning or even Friday morning, you're worn out and looking forward to that afternoon of like, woohoo, the weekend's finally here. It's a way to up our positive emotions. And what we know is students learn better when you come from a positive state. So if for no other reason, if you need justification of why to start your day with going around and having children in your room share about what's going well for them or tell me something good for learning purpose, the brain's going to be better ready to learn when it comes from a state of positivity.
It makes so much sense. I feel like we might need to invite you back again, Sheila, to talk more about how we can really implement this with our students. Do you think, would that be okay? Can we invite you back sometime?
Absolutely.
That would be awesome. I think we got a little bit too preoccupied with the adults and
totally fine.
Thinking about ourselves. Yes.
And I think that's a great beginning because if we show up with our cups filled, get to go back to that analogy, but we're refueled, then we're going to show up for our students in such a better way. And so now that we know what we need to do to show up as our best selves, now we can take that and have that ripple effect and find ways to bring it into our students. So I would love to have a part 2.
Excellent. Thank you so much. But before we go, we do ask our guests to share a pair down pointer with us, some tip or strategy that might help our listeners to maybe be more minimalist or to find more joy in their day. Do you have a pair down pointer for us?
Yeah. Well, my favorite motto, my mantra is to make today count. And I think one of the best ways to do that, if we want to put a financial investment piece onto that, spin onto that, is truly invest in joy, because that is really going to give you the highest interest, that compounding interest of the more you keep investing in moments of joy, it's going to show up in so many different ways. And I don't know about you, but I'll take any way of being rich as I can. And if it's being rich in joy, I will take it.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today, Sheila.
Thank you so much for having me today. And I will be happy also to share with you ladies some of my favorite resources when it comes to books and sites for cultivating more joy.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
We'll put those in the show notes.
And we'll see you for part 2.
Absolutely. Anticipation.
This episode was brought to you by Positively Sheila. Invest in a life full of joy and stay positively connected. Follow Sheila on Instagram at positively.sheila or on her Facebook page at Be Positively Connected.
Be sure to join Tammy and Christine and guests for more episodes of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. They would love to hear about your journey with minimalism. Connect with them at PlanZPLS on Twitter or Instagram. The music for the podcast has been written and performed by Gaia Moretti.